O'clock, so I'll call the Monday, November 22nd board meeting to order. And we'll start with roll call.
Charles Blacklands,
Here.
Kevin Boyles,
Here virtually.
Tom Hageland,
Here.
Ruth Nelson,
Here.
Jana Shogren, 4 of the 5 present.
Then let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Couple, I'll make these really brief. Our school board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.02. You can monitor it from a remote location by watching on YouTube Live, and it is being recorded. Director Boyles, as he noted, is remotely attending and will be able to vote, and we'll do all of our voting by roll call. And I know Director Shogren will be here, but she's running a little late because she had to go to the Baxter City Council meeting, or Brainerd City Council meeting. Also, face coverings are required for all individuals, and I thank you in advance in your compliance to this policy. So first up, we have the motion to approve the agenda, and it is amended. The recognitions were added, and under new business, we added the presentation for our abatement bonds. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Blacklands.
Second.
Thank you, Director Hagelin. Okay.
Tom and I have to pay attention.
You do?
Yeah.
I add that there's one more thing.
Oh, okay.
There is an action item asking the board to have me coordinate a potential transportation contract at the YMCA.
Oh, okay. I did see that on there earlier, but,
Oh, was it? Okay.
yeah.
The YMCA is a new also.
Okay.
Last
So
item.
one more, just to note.
So, yep.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Hageland,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
all present in favor.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll go on to recognitions. I'll turn it
Right.
over.
A lot of great academic awards tonight that we get to recognize. So I'd like to begin by congratulating the Warrior varsity teams that were awarded Academic Gold Awards for having a team grade point average above a 3.75. They are the girls volleyball team and the girls tennis team. At the last meeting, we recognized both the boys and the girls cross-country teams as well. So congratulations to our outstanding academic award winners. Congratulations also to the Warrior varsity girls swimming and diving teams that were awarded Academic Silver Awards for having a team grade point average above a 3.5. Congratulations to the Warrior varsity football team for being awarded Academic Silver Award for having an overall grade point average of a 3.0 or above. We certainly have a lot of smart kids in our school, that's for sure. Congratulations to Nathaniel Staling for being selected to play in the 2021 Minnesota Football Coaches Association All-Star Football Game. And finally, congratulations to Izzy Olson, who placed 22nd at the Minnesota State High School League State Class AA Diving Meet, and to Brenna Deason, who placed 23rd in the Minnesota State High School League Class AA Diving Meet. Congratulations to both of those athletes. That ends my report.
It's exciting, a 22nd and a 23rd.
Yeah, right
and
after each other.
Very exciting. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and next up, we are going to have a Blueprint 181 project update.
Scott and Mark, huh?
Good evening.
Hello. How's it going this afternoon, or evening, I should say? How do you present in Google?
Upper right corner where it says present.
Probably just hit the present button. Makes sense. All right, pretty much just project updates this afternoon. Brainerd High School North Campus, so Area 2, we're still working through some punch list items. Material obviously has been a challenge to get. Replacement lights, LEDs, things of that nature are taking a really long time to get, but we are steadily working on it. We've rectified probably 70% of the open punch list items in there to date. A lot of the material, the flooring materials has shown up and has been installed. We're still waiting on broadloom carpet and some rigging items to get taken care of. Area 9, which is the Ox Gym, we were informed the day that we were supposed to have our egress doors delivered that they won't be there till the end of December now. So unfortunately, we'll have some temporary access doors installed there for occupancy. As of writing this on last week Friday, our delayed acoustical treatments did show up. They showed up today, actually, so they're being installed as we speak. And our floor rings for the volleyball sleeves are out until the end of December, so we're going to put some temporary covers in their place to mitigate any tripping hazards. Area 10, our pool, we will be starting to paint this week, which is really good. We've got railings going up. Our rough-ins are, I'd say, 99% complete as of right now. We'll get painted, get our ceramic tile down, and then we'll be waiting for the pools to come down. And then the greenhouse, so the installation of fire protection began. We finally got our materials for that. We're anticipating our final tie-in November 29th. So we'll have our tie-in and we'll do our occupancy inspection and be able to use it shortly thereafter.
When will the Ox Gym be available to be used?
Assuming everything goes well tomorrow morning.
Oh, okay,
So fingers crossed.
okay, wonderful.
Yep.
So what was the final decision or the final option with the volleyball? So I'm assuming the rings you're referring to are for the regular play?
Sleeves. Yeah.
And then there was some discussion about having them perpendicular to that too. Will that be over in the multi-purpose area now, or what was?
Running them perpendicular, you wouldn't be able to get full courts in.
Right, I understand that. I'm just asking what was the final decision on?
I don't believe that a final decision's been made. I mean, they can be installed essentially at any point. The flooring was already installed and complete. So
Right.
as of right now, we just have the 4 sets, the 2 volleyball, 2 tennis are installed.
Okay, and then is there an option to be able to play volleyball in the multi-purpose, or to practice in the multi-purpose?
I think Reed is,
I think you could.
Yeah, I can add to that. As far as volleyball in the Ox Gym, we're going to keep the main court volleyball set up there. The perpendicular would create hazards along the baselines, and so we paused on that right now until we can get that full gym set up. We're actually having a meeting tomorrow to talk about the multi-purpose room. One of the things that I was going to share at that point with Scott was a request for looking at adding in the volleyball sleeves for an additional gym space for practice for our JV teams. And so we're evaluating, Director Blacklands, where that additional space is going to be. And like Scott said, anytime if we decide down the road we can cut in plates into the gyms, any of the gyms. Okay. But for right now, we just gave the contractors the direction just to continue forward with the intended plans and get that space opened as soon as possible. So
okay, and that's consistent with,
tomorrow.
great, and that's consistent with what we had chatted about earlier?
That's the same message we had talked about earlier over 200. Yep.
So I'm just a little ahead of your discussion. So
Discussion tomorrow. Yep.
Discussion tomorrow. Yep, now I know. All right.
Has the varsity coach been updated on that as well? Great, thank you.
So the picture on the right is our Ox Gym. Those are 4 of the windows that we were waiting a very long time to receive. Picture on the left is our completed wrestling room. I think pads are showing up here in the next couple of weeks. Picture on the right, we got our bleachers. They finally showed up and were installed, and those are complete as of now. South Campus, not a whole lot going on there. Area A, we're just waiting on the final door frame to show up to finish our framing, which should be today. Should have showed up. Area B, again, we're just waiting on door frames. Area C, we're roughing in, getting near completion. Area D, which is a picture on the right side of the screen, so that's been leveled out in preparation of the athletic floor that's going in there. You can see on the right side of that picture, we've had to hold that open because electrical gear that we were anticipating to be delivered last week, we are now informed that they're no longer making. So we're having to figure out what we're gonna do for transformers. It's copper-owned transformers. They're not on production schedule. They can't get raw materials to even make the product for us. So we're gonna be looking at some other options for transformer, or switchgear in that building. Area E, which is our middle school and elementary school, we just started framing out in there this week. So as of right now, things are plugging along. We're really looking forward to getting the rest of our door frames so we can continue on with the progress. And there's the picture on the left would be Area B, which is the administrative area where our framing's complete, sans a couple of door frames. And then on the right side is Area E, our blocking infill for some of the new classrooms there. Any questions on South Campus? Hearing none.
Okay. All right, Garfield Elementary. Landscaping is ongoing and weather dependent, so I know they're trying to get in everything they can before the hard freeze. Painting in the gym is complete. Athletic equipment installation completed. The wood floor installation is starting and punch list work is ongoing. They're getting wrapped up with a lot of those items. Any questions on Garfield? Okay. The Brainerd Learning Center, 95% construction documents were issued and reviewed, so we have started our CD estimate and getting prepped to do send that out for bid or for pricing. And then we held a page turn here last week and walked through some of the details with user groups to confirm that we had the right things in place, and we've made a couple adjustments based off that, but everything's sitting in a good place for that one right now. Any questions on Brainerd Learning Center? Okay, Wesby. SD documents or schematic design documents are nearing completion. We've got a few last hurdles to jump to get some spaces dialed in on exactly how they're going to be used, and that'll dictate a few things for us to wrap up the schematic design. We had the structural engineer out to look at how the new bathrooms would be supported, and he had some good feedback for us on that. That avoided a lot of structural steel and joists that are nearly impossible to get, so we've got some good ideas there to help us with procurement. And then SD estimates and preliminary logistics planning have started. So we've got the outlines in place, and we're gonna start building out how we move people around, and that's, like I said, we've got a few last hurdles to jump, and then we'll know how the places fall into place, or the pieces fall into place. Any questions on Wesby? Questions overall?
No. Looking good. Exciting to continue on with Wesby. And we should make a note that Director Sjogren showed up at 6:12. She had another meeting that she informed us about, so that was quick turnaround.
They're quick over there at the city.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up, we have public input. So your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we have someone that's gonna call up.
Anne Marie.
Oh, Anne Marie. It's your turn.
I've got Nick Hillman first. He's got 2 this evening, so.
How many did you say?
2.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Nick Hillman. We have heard a great deal of talk from this board about the necessity for and importance of transparency. However, based on recent actions by this board, we can see that such talk is merely that, talk. On October 25th, you received a list of applicants for the open seats. These applicants were then ranked and listed by you in the order of your preferences. This led to discussion about which applicants you would be interviewing. When Chairman Nelson was about to announce the names of those candidates to be interviewed, Superintendent Larson directed her to read the names alphabetically, even though the names the school board provided listed the candidates' names in order of ranked preference. The document you were discussing was a public document. You were discussing the document during a public meeting, and the meeting was being videotaped. Yet Chairman Nelson read the document in alphabetical order without raising an eyebrow or questioning the superintendent's request. Not one question was asked. You were given instruction by Superintendent Larson, and you followed those instructions lockstep. Why? If you claim to be transparent, wouldn't it be reasonable to inform the public of how the board ranked the candidates, and more importantly, why? Not sharing your ranking of the applicants is anything but transparent. It is Superintendent Larson's responsibility to inform you when rules, policies, and yes, even state statutes need to be followed, not to tell you to do something that hides the truth from the public. Truth is crucial. Truth promotes support from the people in this district and should be implemented all the time, not occasionally. Deception discourages support and trust. Proverbs 12:22 says, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but they that deal truly are his delight. Can any one of you tell us one thing that is more important than the truth? Also, Romans 1:18 says, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Remember, all of those who voted for the illegal mask mandate are on notice, and justice will be served in God's name.
All right, Doug?
So this thing echoes when I wear it. Just wanted to wish y'all a happy Thanksgiving, coming up like a freight train. Some of the things that I'm thankful for is our history, where the 90 Indians, the Wampanoag tribe that saved the first settlers that were here. And that first Thanksgiving where they gave a 3-day feast to thank God and to thank the Indians for what they did, where they saved our people. It was a mutual thing. Plymouth Rock was a place where they thanked God. And I just want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. So leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, and that is all the public comment for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there, too. Next up, we will have our COVID-19 update with Heidi Hahn, Angie Bennett, and Superintendent Larson.
Good evening, members of the board. We are back for yet again another COVID update. Here's our current data from Crow Wing County. We did highlight the cases of 0 to 18-year-olds because those are the students we're serving. So you can see that we're significantly down from the start of the school year. However, compared to where we're at in the middle of October, we're starting to see an uptick again of positive cases within our 0 to 18-year-old students. This is our current dashboard. So our overall number of cases per 10,000 are up slightly from where we were at last week. We were at 72.3, and now we're up to 86.1. So just to give you an idea of what that is, when we were at 72.3, that was 53 total positives between students and staff, and now at 86.1, that's 63 total positives. If you look at our whole school year, in a snapshot, the highest week we had was 92 positives between staff and students in 1 week, and the lowest we've been this year is 43 positives between staff and students. Again, we continue to mirror the county in our data. Like we say, we're a microcosm. So when you see, if you go back to those numbers, 85.8, we're at 86.1. So we tend to stay pretty lock and step. With overall numbers, again, a reminder that our building data is always on our district dashboard, so people can see that. We count our data at 4 o'clock every Tuesday, so we compare week-to-week data. That information can be found on the COVID-19 dashboard, and all buildings are listed there, as well as the details from this presentation. How is COVID impacting busing? Because that's been a concern and things that we've been dealing with a lot right now. So currently we have 8 drivers out. And that's led to some of our routes being canceled and finding out alternatives. We're gonna talk about possibilities and things we're doing next. The good news is Reichert's has 6 drivers currently in training. They're about 2 weeks out from being fully licensed. 3 of those drivers stepped up specifically for Forest View Middle School activities. So talk about the parents when they came to talk. They're done complaining. They're stepping up and taking what they need to do to help support our students and get them where they need to go. And then we have 3 other drivers getting ready for routes. So that's exciting. They have 6 drivers coming back. With our drivers that are out for medical reasons, 3, potentially 4 will be back next week. So that's where Reichert's is hoping once we come back from the Thanksgiving break, we'll see those routes being reinstated. One of the things they're looking at, they're still going to be dealing with a couple issues into next week. So tiering routes, and what that means is they run a route and they actually put kids down in the lower route and they hold them on a bus. I got to supervise one of those buses last week. It's kind of fun to hang out with kids. But the driver will run their route and then they come back and then they pick up the next load of kids and they take them back. So right now Reichert's is looking at having that be part of the solution next Tuesday and next Friday. Solutions that we're looking at long-term as a district, like we said, we've talked about looping the bus back, so that's what they're doing when they're tiering those routes. We're looking at opportunities to provide supervision earlier in the morning and later in the PM, so parents might be able to drop their students off early since they have to get to work and then have them stay at school later, so we're looking at that. The expansion of that would be, could we have that supervision in place so we can actually have Reichert's routes starting earlier? So they would tier out, go earlier and do a route and then come back. So Fran and Norby are working on all those routes downstairs to see if that's possible. We're seeking out parent volunteers and service group volunteers to help us with that supervision in the morning and the afternoon. So we're looking for people who are willing to step up and help us do that. Later on in the board meeting, we're talking about a waiver for extracurricular, co-curricular activities, allowing for transportation of our students so we can make sure they're getting to activities. We're partnering with the YMCA. What's nice, YMCA, Shane at the Y stepped up and said, we have a bus and we have a driver, so we're working at getting that connection and being able to access that service. And as always, some of the best ideas have come from parents who are on the front line trying to help us figure out these problems. So we're really anxious to hear from them any additional solutions they have. But Kevra and Elsie from Reichert's wanted to make you sure that you had an update on where things are at. They're continuing to advertise and try to get more people into driving to continue to help with the transportation. But COVID is definitely impacting their ability to sustain routes as well.
One thing that we did talk about as well, the law says that you have to provide transportation within 2 miles. And so we're just getting some numbers to see what that would do for the short term if we didn't provide close, like the 0.3 to 2 miles just for the short term until we get the drivers back or until we get more drivers. So they're analyzing that data as well. We just forgot to put it on the slide tonight, so.
Because we're exceeding that right now, or
Yeah, we pick up and do transportation within 0.3 of a mile, and the law says 2 miles, so.
And I think the goal is to try to do everything we can to keep the routes that we have. And so Reichert's is working diligently, as is the transportation staff. One of the things they're looking at is winter sports. They're trying to figure out how to loop routes in town quicker to try to bring more buses back for activities as well. So we have looked into that and some possibility of some adjustments at Forest View Middle School of how we can move buses quicker. So our students, the other thing we have happening is students sitting in the lower lot for sometimes 30 minutes waiting for all the buses to arrive so they can shuttle across. So trying to streamline that too, to try to get routes completed and more buses back.
Well, I would say this, if everybody can hear me, Director Blacklance and I were part of a meeting a few weeks back with Reichert's and a lot of it, district admin staff to try to spitball and brainstorm on this issue. And I've got to say that while we still would like to solve some more of these problems, was humbled and impressed by Reichert's efforts throughout this crisis, as well as the efforts, as always, by our administration and Norby and everybody trying to figure all this stuff out. This is not easy at all. And you guys have been working your tails off trying to figure it out. So thank you very much. And thank you to Reichert's.
Thank you.
I'd agree. It's been all hands on deck. And then we do want to say a special thank you to our parents. We know this has been challenging and difficult on them as well. It's not what you plan on, to get a call and then have to shuffle and figure out how to get things rearranged for your students. And I think neighbors have been jumping in and grandparents have been jumping in to try to get students to and from school as well. So we just thank people for their patience and their support as we continue to navigate.
Yeah, and I think the board has gotten a few emails about busing, and most have been, well, they have been very nice emails, and also tried to offer suggestions and ideas too. So that's really great that the community is supporting and realizes that we're in a tough spot right now when it comes to busing.
So I said some of our best ideas have come from parents.
Yeah.
So please keep them coming. Because we can. We'll do it together.
Wonderful.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have approval of the minutes from the regular school board meeting on November 8th. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Sjogren. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Oh, whoops, roll call vote, please.
Good catch.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you. So that's approved. And next up is our consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Blacklands. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
all in favor.
Consent calendar is approved. Next up, we have new action. We have a presentation on our abatement bond sale from Greg Crow and Marcy Lord. And congratulations to Greg
Yeah, congratulations,
Yeah.
Greg,
for his new position with,
President of Ellers.
yeah, President.
Congratulations.
An interesting couple of weeks.
A little busy, I bet.
him, is what you say.
We-
Surprised that you're even here.
Right? You can't keep me away.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Right.
wonderful.
So in your guys' packet is the pre-sale report and then also the resolution, and Greg's just gonna walk through what the bid results were. And then we're gonna look for a motion to get that approved tonight for the sale.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how this is associated with the bond referendum from April of 2018?
Yeah. So let's talk generally, and then specifically about the bids. If you remember, a few years ago, we started this process with a big voter-approved bond. And there were multiple components to that, and each of the components sometimes had multiple components. The abatement bonds was one piece of that, and at the time of the planning for the bond issue, we had assumed we'd
You can
do-
take your mask
Oh,
off while you're
okay.
talking if you'd like. No, it gets hard to.
We assumed as part of the total financing of the project that we'd issue about $8 million of abatement bonds for parking lot projects. A couple of years ago, we issued the first abatement bond in the amount of about $5 million. The abatement portion of tonight's bond is about another $1 million. So we're really hitting right now what ICS has kind of revised the budget for this component. But really relative to the original plan, there's actually still a couple $1 million of abatement authority that hasn't been issued and used, that the board kind of indicated in that first planning process that they were supportive of. And so should that become necessary, we would just plan to do that as an additional bond issuance in the future. Right now, at this moment, the money isn't needed for projects, but obviously you all have that in your plan and can still reserve the right to issue those bonds going forward. The other piece of it are a couple of bonds that types that impact your general fund. Capital facility bonds and facilities maintenance bonds for deferred maintenance. And each of those is in about the $3 to $3.5 million range that we anticipated we would need. But because the debt service on those bonds doesn't come as an additional levy, but rather is a commitment of some of your general fund resources, we've been holding those out to the very end to make sure you needed to use those. Because if you don't need to issue that debt, then ultimately you'll be also preserving the general fund resources for ongoing capital and maintenance needs going forward. So that's kind of been why we've been a little cautious on that in terms of the planning. And I think all along we planned on leaving those till the very end and just making sure that they were necessary to complete the projects as you anticipated. And then we'll show in the sale day report that you've got in front of you is that kind of colorful chart of bond issuance, and we'll show you compared to the $7 tax rate that the voters approved in, before the first bond issue. We're still below that, and actually the district grew a little bit faster in tax base this past year than we anticipated because we've always been a little conservative on that. And so the tax rate's actually quite a bit lower. And so if we do get to the point where we need to issue more abatement bonds, which have a tax impact, then there's certainly room within that tax capacity expectation to do that. So that's big picture related to the whole project. You're really in good shape. We've continued to have resources. The investment earnings are higher than anticipated. And so you know, really kind of everything's coming together as we planned at the very beginning. So that's all good news. And so today's piece of this, $1 million of the bond is for the abatement projects, parking lots. But since we were doing a bond issue, you had a smaller refunding of about $2 million that I think Matthew described last month when he was here, or 2 months ago. But basically, you can refinance debt that's outstanding, but it costs you to issue debt just, you know, with cost of issuance and all that. Since you're doing the abatement bond, we incorporated those as one bond issue just to keep the cost down. That also means you get a little bit more savings for your taxpayers. So at the same time that we're talking about potential tax impact, we're also keeping an eye on your outstanding debt and trying to reduce taxes by refinancing some of your outstanding debt. So there's two components to this. And both, they were sold together as one bond issue. And we took bids this morning at about 10:30 and received 4 bids. The low bid was from Piper Sandler and Company. And if you remember, we had an interest rate of about 0.76% in the pre-sale documents that were presented to you when Matthew was here. The low bid today was 0.54%. So pretty low rate. This is only a 3-year bond, so if you think about a 3-year loan versus a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage, this is a short loan, so we anticipated the rates would be lower. And the savings from going from 0.76 to 0.54 isn't a huge change because the bond is outstanding for such short of a time, so there isn't a lot of interest to be paid. But on the refunding portion, the interest rate for that $2 million is dropping from 2% right now to 0.54%. So it's saving about $50,000 for your taxpayers or reduced levies next year. And that's all in the chart on the first page. I do want to also mention that we did have a rating call, and Lane and Marcy did a great job on the call talking about the district, the challenge you've been facing, how you've met those challenges on a financial basis. And they did affirm that A rating that they assigned, but they do want you to keep an eye on your fund balance and make sure you're managing your finances well. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. That's kind of everything that's in the report. The rest of the pages are the detailed financials. Page 1 is just a list of each bidder, and you can see Piper Sandler actually was in a syndicate with Cantor Fitzgerald and Truist Securities to raise the $3 million. Page 3 and 4 are the debt service schedules for the first. Page 3 is the refunding portion, the old schedule's at that 2% rate. And then page 4 is the combined debt service for both portions of the new bond. Page 6 is the savings amount. That's where you see the $50,000 of savings. And then page 7 is just the abatement component. So page 8 is the one that we're used to looking at. And that shows your outstanding debt, the chart. And it is a nice representation of where you've been and where we're at, and the opportunity going forward if you do have to issue additional debt. So you can see that for taxes payable in 2022, for just the capital portions of your levy, if you remember, your total levy is roughly the same. For just the capital portions, even with this additional bond issuance, the tax impact or the tax rate is actually going to go down slightly compared to where it was in pay 21. And pay 21, it kind of keys off of pay 19 at that $7 per average home tax impact. And so you can see going forward, due to that, greater tax base, we're anticipating that tax rate to go down, and you have an opportunity then, if you do need to issue additional debt, to talk about the fact that the tax rate is lower than what it was when the original election was passed. And then lastly is the rating report, and I'll just point to the page. I'm trying to find the upside and downside scenarios. They usually right on the front.
Page 4.
Oh, there we go. Yep, page 4. So right in the middle where it says stable outlook. So they're giving you a stable outlook, but I just like to highlight what potentially could hurt your rating or improve your rating. And so the downside scenario is if your operating performance, which is your fund balance, begins to deteriorate, resulting in reserve levels that are not commensurate with your peers. And then they also suggest there could be some pressure on the rating if you have continuous declining enrollment. And then on the upside, once your debt burden starts to moderate, which obviously won't be in the next probably year or two, but down the road, if that happens, that's one of the downward pressures on your rating, so they could potentially start raising the rating if you maintain everything else as you start paying off some of your debt.
Craig, where's the piece on the reserve fund? What page?
Page 4, under stable outlook.
It's, in ours, it's page
Oh, sorry.
15. Yeah, for some reason. In here, does that help?
It's,
Page 4 of the Standard & Poor's report, I guess.
yeah, so it's the there's 8
Yeah,
pages of
okay, yeah, so
attachments
on the
and then
actual
rating.
paper, it's 4, but on ours, it's page 15. That's what it
Oh,
says.
okay.
If you look down below, yeah.
And I did ask them what is the similar to those of higher rated peers, and they gave me the information that, some of them have up to 25%. So just another thing to keep in the back of your mind when we talk about the fund balance policy, because we did increase that to 10%, but with that goal of always just adding maybe a little bit more to get up there, build it up.
And that's kind of why I was asking about it, because if we're below 10, we're below what our policy is wanting to get to 10, but even if we reach 10, is it going to be considered well below peers?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you have the resolution in front of you, which is kind of all the boilerplate language that encompasses all of the numbers that are in this report, and sets the levies and things like that. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that as well.
So does anyone have any further questions? This is good news. Oh, yeah. Okay, and the resolution, the wording is on our agenda. If anyone would like to make a motion.
I'll move for the sale of the general obligation abatement bonds, alternative facilities funding bonds, 2021A. Approval of, so I'll be motioning to approve resolution of, awarding the sale of general obligation abatement bonds, alternative facilities funding bonds, say, series 2021A.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, we have a first from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Boyles. Good to hear your voice, Director Boyles. Any further discussion? And we need a roll call vote for 2 reasons on this one.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
all in favor.
So that's been approved, and thank you, and congratulations again.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you. It has been a great ride over the last 9 or 10 years working with the district. I've loved every minute of it, and I've loved, being part of some really amazing things happening here. And I will still be around. I told Lane and Marcy I'm not going to forget what I know, and I'll still be working with the district. I may step back a little bit and let Matthew take a bigger role, but I'll still be available. But I do want to say thank you very much for personally and for your choice to work with Ellers over the years. We've really, really enjoyed it. So thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks. Thank you.
This is the part where you guys don't let him go.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation on another fun thing, Mississippi Landing Trailhead Park Update with Reed TC, Paul Sandy, and David Badeau. Welcome.
Hi. Come bearing gifts of Paul Sandy today. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
All right, let's see here. All right, so I believe a week or a couple of weeks ago, Mayor Badeau sent a letter to the school district requesting conversation about the Mississippi Trailhead Landing Park, just west of Don Adamson Field, right below the high rise. And one of the pieces that we have to have conversation about in order to facilitate the further development of the park would be there's a small parcel of land that the Brainerd School District owns, and we are currently, or had been previously, in a joint use agreement for the parking lot by Don Adamson Field. So if you look at the survey document here on the screen, I'll try and zoom in here. Essentially, our baseball field would be to the east of East River Road here. HRA High Rise, Mississippi High Rise is directly to the north, and then this would be the parking lot that is currently located west of East River Road. The Brainerd School District owns parcels 1, 2, 3, I believe it says 1, 2, 3, sorry, 1, 2, 10, 11, and 12. So we have 1 and 2 on block 1, and then we have 10, 11, and 12. And when you look at really what's in the parking lot or what usable space this is, it is pretty minimal when it comes down to the overall operation of the parking lot and the west side of the facility. So one of the conversations that we'd like to have today here, or give you an opportunity, the city and the school district here board to have a conversation about, is what do we want to do with that land, and what do they need to continue to facilitate design documentation for the development of the Trailhead Park. So I'm going to step back and let the mayor and the city engineer have a conversation.
So most of it I can let Paul Sandy speak of, but just to give you a heads up of where we're at, we have the initial rough design layout that has since changed slightly because of elevation and changes that we'll need in order to make it fit. Most of what that piece of land that you guys have probably will not have any type of structure on it in terms of what we've looked at with our new design, but just for purposes of trying to make sure that in the long term, when we go to look at maybe some kind of expansion, or if there's any type of need for something, just so that there isn't an issue down the road, that's why we're wanting to talk with you about potentially passing that land over.
Let me see if I can get there.
And actually, I know ever since I've been here, I've been attending meetings with different people from the community at looking at developing this piece. And so it's really fun to see that the Mississippi Landing Trailhead Park is actually a reality as far as application. And so it's fun to have the plan and how we can collaborate together to make some really great things happen right on the side of the Mississippi. So it's
Yeah,
fun to be here
absolutely.
tonight.
Absolutely. The biggest desire from the city is to activate some space where people can have interaction with the Mississippi, including steps down into it, a classroom where children can learn down there, amphitheater. But really, it's about taking a parking lot and removing it and moving towards a philosophy that the city is adopting, which is more on-street parking, which is a more financially viable solution for us moving forward. We can enhance the roadways and repair them down the road, as opposed to having a separate fee for having to maintain a parking lot. So it's a great opportunity to remove a parking lot, replace the parking within the roadway itself, and then hopefully have some great advancements to the city as well. So other than that, Paul Sandy can give you guys information.
So yeah, up on the screen, you guys can see, I don't know how many of you guys have seen this document, but this is what was submitted to LCCMR. It's a grant funding source through the state legislature that they actually funded us for this specific project. And the amenities you see on the screen is what our project management team is working on right now. And it includes all of these, the 1 through whatever it is. There's a number of elements that we're working on as a group. And that piece of property that we showed you earlier is an important aspect of this, because you can see that amphitheater and the hill that area kind of encompasses will be an important part of the amphitheater too. We plan on having some tiered seating in that area, but also that hillside that goes up to the high rise will be a part of the area where people can sit and enjoy different things that are happening at the amphitheater space. So that piece of property, besides what Reed and the mayor kind of spoke about, is very important to the city to acquire for that purpose alone, and for the consistency standpoint. There is some consistency that does come along with that, and just so there's future availability of land for the city to look at other things that we could put in that park. This will be an important amenity to Brainerd as a whole. So I guess I'm open to any questions you guys have about where we're at in this process, kind of how it would look going forward. But yeah, I'm certainly willing to answer anything you guys have.
Can you tell me again if we're losing parking spots? Because I just think of how crazy it is down there for a football game.
Me too.
So we're losing parking spots. How will you, Mayor Bedeau, you had said that you'll be able to put those on the street. Are you able to do that without having to widen it, or do you plan on widening it at some point?
We do have a different diagram, and I don't have it with me tonight, but basically we're putting diagonal parking on the street along with this project. So the city, when we're down there constructing this park, will be removing the existing street and then incorporating diagonal parking spaces along East River Road. I believe it's pretty equivalent to the amount of, people don't park in there in the lines anyways, but equivalent number of spaces on the street will be available, just not in a surface parking lot. It'll be on the street instead.
And there's multiple reasons for us doing this, and this kind of goes to our philosophy across the entire city, is that we're looking at safety as well as usage. Obviously, a flat surface parking lot has a lot of cost to it, but it's also fairly unsafe when you start looking at the roadway itself and the speeds that people will travel. Our goal with it is to create a calming effect so that as you enter that space, you will basically feel as though the road has narrowed, which causes people to slow down, which will be very important for us with the access that'll be happening back and forth between the existing pathway you guys have and what we envision going across.
So it'll be like you're in downtown Brainerd. When cars are backing out, you're constantly on the lookout for cars backing out, creating more or less a calming effect. So you're entering this area and there will be cars, people walking across the street, and things you have to watch out for. So there is East River Road right now, there is some on-street parking, but you don't get a lot of that traffic calming effect when you have no on-street parking at all.
And the majority of that area is actually designated as no parking.
Yeah.
So what we're adding to it is the ability to have the cars on the actual road, and then pretty close to the equivalent of what we are taking out of from that flat surface lot.
And then, in the future, this has been talked about briefly, the amenities we're putting in this park, outdoor classroom, river steps, that kind of stuff. The city would be looking to become partners with you guys and programming activities at that site, being so close to the high school.
Is there a landing for like kayaks and stuff where people can put their kayaks in and things like, I know we
Yep.
had talked about that in the past.
Yeah, so there will be a different canoe kayak launch. The one over in Kiwanis Park does get quite muddy and things. And so what we're planning on is there'll be like a aggregate path up to like the high water level, and then we'll be doing like something like a pervious paver down to the river level to be able to get your kayaks and canoes in at that location also.
Is it a different bottom at the river there? Is it sandier at that location?
It's pretty much the same. I mean, it's most of that is in the floodplain. There is some slope issues that we're working through, trying to get down to that river level, and there's still conversations with the engineers about how low we can actually, go to the water, because when you do that, you're getting into the ordinary high water mark, you're getting into DNR permits. So we're making sure that we're being sensitive to the river, because it's obviously a very important resource, but also trying to get the amenities we feel we want in this park, because Brainerd is very respectful of the river right now. We want to still be respectful to that, but we also want people to be able to access it through these amenities, overlook, canoe kayak launch, trails, just trying to make it a more open and pleasant experience down there.
It'll be wonderful. So what's the timing on it? Like, you still have to get a lot of approvals, and are we looking 2, 3, 4 years out?
So right now we're working, our PMT committee is made up of city staff, the community development director, myself. It's made up of our engineering consultants, WSB, and then we have a couple park board members, a couple city council members, the mayor sits on that, and a couple members of the riverfront committee. We're actually hoping to be in the ground in the spring of this year. Hopefully we'll be out for bids sometime in February or March, and hopefully you'll see some activity down there come the summer of 2022.
Yeah, at this point, the committee has worked through most of the items and has selected what they're interested in having in terms of the look, the feel, the types of materials being used. The actual layout will be determined by what we can end up with. Obviously, if that piece of property is not available to the city, we'll work around that. But as Paul said, there will be a little bit of overflow from that potential amphitheater that could work nicely. There was a talk of the bathrooms potentially being in that area, but we've designed it so that they could be swapped if need be.
Okay, and so the only question I would have then is, right now, we don't have a lot of high school parking, and I think, or a lot of our students parking down there for?
I wouldn't, we have students parking in that parking lot right now. I wouldn't say it's a lot.
Okay.
I definitely could check with the high school. I'd say any given day, I've seen anywhere 15 to 30, 40 cars maybe at the most down in that lot. Obviously, as it gets towards winter, it's a lot less favorable location for parking. Next summer, we are going to be creating one of our student parking lots at a minimum at North Campus on the east side of 5th Street there. So at a minimum, we're going to have, I think it's 172 stalls that are going to be created east of the high school. So should alleviate some of that student parking. I guess my concerns, and something we haven't really had a great deal of conversation about, and Charles, you mentioned the event parking, whether it be football or baseball games. Obviously, we know softball parks there. Just having good accessible parking for even some of our, the grandparents that come to these games and might need assistance getting down to these events, having good, if we're going to develop on-street parking, making sure that we have some accessible stalls there available to us, and that visitors to the sports complex have good access to that, is important in my mind.
And my main concern is the spring. If they're going to start this already, we have baseball going on, and we have graduation, and we have a lot of stuff. So we need to have plans in place to handle that traffic and that parking.
The city entered into agreement with you for the parking lot usage contingent on funding being received by the city on this. So from our standpoint, the funding has been received, and so we are looking to start moving forward with our option on that to start removing it.
Okay.
And another option that we could explore, you know, we have the library parking lot, which is, it's since empty for most of the day. That's certainly something that for a temporary means, we could look at, you know, getting some sort of agreement put into place to use that surface parking right next to your guys' upper high school lot that, you know, if we do have some overflow or kids that do park down there on a regular basis, we could designate half of the parking lot just as a temporary means of getting kids to school. So.
Okay, that would be great. And then, yeah, and then just figuring out for baseball, because isn't that right where you go in and out of the baseball area?
Yeah, that would be this connecting trail right at marker number 1 here. This is the access that goes past the baseball concession stand and would wrap down in front of the baseball field and then continue on over towards the softball complex, softball field.
Yeah, and there is plan for the access, the crossing of the road to line up with that current access.
Okay. Yeah, you know, long-term it'll be great. My concern would be the spring that we work so we know how we're gonna have
There will
baseball, softball.
definitely be some disruption on that road because we are looking to essentially remove it and replace it.
We haven't talked much about phasing yet, but it's certainly something we could, you know, maybe it's the last improvement that we do so that we get, you know, out of that springtime and work more in the dead of summer and doing the road. Maybe it's the last portion we do of that. And we can certainly, you know, talk with Reed, you know, and make sure that the phasing plan kind of lines up on probably the least busiest time in that area.
That would be very helpful, I think.
Graduation,
So.
baseball,
Graduation,
that's
we could
pretty
maybe do
pretty
that.
busy.
Yeah.
Our obviously our desire is to be down at the football field for graduation, so
Would
weather
that-
dependent.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, that large green area, is that grass?
So you're talking like 14?
Above 13.
Above 13, so that 13 is just gonna be natural landscaping?
Yeah, we're calling it kind of a flex space. It's an area where kids can pick up a game of flag football, open green space for people to just enjoy the park with some natural landscaping. There'll be some natural play areas too we're talking about with some for younger children. I believe the project management team talked a little bit about that at the last meeting.
So you're talking like areas 4 here, so having some.
Yeah, the goal is to not create a playground. We have plenty of playgrounds. We have one located right down the road at Kiwanis, but a play type area where they can explore various different obstacles of sorts using more of a natural setting. Our goal with this is to have it be as natural looking as possible using materials that feel like they fit in that river area. And so the goal with any type of play type area would be to try and match that as well.
I love making more use of the river area, so.
The last question I guess I would have on it is, and it's inconsequential, but in terms of opportunity for families coming to sporting events, softball, baseball, soccer, or football, with those angled parking slots and then on the park side, I don't even know if this is possible at the ISD 181 grounds, but would it be possible for families if they wanted to set up tailgating before a football game or something to that effect in that park?
It's something we could talk to the police chief about, you know, just to make sure that he doesn't have any safety concerns with people possibly being out in the roadway and things.
I mean on the green, I mean not on the road.
Yeah,
but
no,
I mean,
I think that's 100% what this park is for. It's for people to enjoy the green space, have little pocket picnics during the day, tailgating things, whatever, you know. It's meant to be a community use park, and whatever that entails, you know, we're certainly willing to work with whomever wants to use it.
Our goal from the city side of things now is to focus on creating spaces that people want to be. And we'll let people determine what that is. We want to make sure that there is space available and that they can do exactly what you're saying. You know, if it becomes an area where, you know, people want to rent it out from the park board and just say, we'd like to have this area be set aside for something just like that, absolutely. We'll do that in a heartbeat. We want butts in seats. That's our big goal, so.
Great, thank you.
I just wondering if before we made a decision, I like the overall concept, But I'm wondering, though, on that parking, if we could see what that looks like on that, how many parking spaces we have now, what that diagonal, we don't have to look at it right now unless you've got it, but that diagonal parking, what that final design looks like. And then I'm also not quite understanding the traffic flow. I mean, that's a fairly busy road, and especially going south, it's fairly fast, and I'm not quite understanding how diagonal cars and congestion is ultimately going to slow the traffic down.
So essentially what happens, there's been plenty of studies on this, and we've spent a lot of time looking into these types of things. What happens with the way you design roads is people will drive the way that the road is designed for. So if you put obstacles alongside of it, if you put trees, if you put cars that are available there, you will see a calming effect. One of the biggest issues in a city is the entranceways, the gateways to it. 210 is a great example. We just had a new road put in at Cypress, and you're already starting to see large collisions at it, because what's happening is your vehicles are coming in very quickly. What we want to do as a city is start to work on narrowing those spaces. So even though traditionally people do drive quicker on that road, we'd like to see that not be the case anymore. We'd like to see a space where children are and where families are really taken down to a point where it is designed for safety. It is designed for people to slow down. You won't be going through that 30 miles an hour. And if you are going through that 30 miles an hour, you will feel very uncomfortable. And that is by design.
So the speed limit's going to change?
So speed limits are a thing that, and Paul can get into this, speed limits are a thing that are set through guidelines that we don't have a lot of control over. Essentially, that's just the way that federal guidelines are in terms of that type of stuff. But the way you design a road will determine how fast people will travel. And there will be a slight widening of it in terms of the access, or in terms of the way that the curb looks, but the way that it's designed with the striping will definitely create a calming effect. And there's tons of data that you can look up for that type of stuff that will prove that tends to be the case.
Yeah, so speed limits are actually, we can't change speed limits unless we go to the Commissioner of Transportation. So 30 miles per hour is the statutory speed limit, but most of the studies find that people don't pay attention to speed limit signs. It's more or less the design of the street that kind of dictates how fast people go. And in general, as the mayor was kind of alluding to, is that chaos creates slower speeds. When you have a lot of different things happening, like in a downtown situation, if you've traveled on Laurel Street at noon, you're not driving 30 miles an hour. You're driving about 10 miles an hour because there's a lot of people walking around, there's cars backing out, there's just a lot of activity, so it feels uncomfortable for a driver to do that. Now, if you drive on Oak Street which is one of the next agenda items, you're coming in on Oak Street from the west or the east, the road's very comfortable to drive on. You're traveling 45, 50 miles an hour. The road is wide. And the speed limit is, it gets down to 30 miles an hour when you get near the school, and it still feels comfortable to travel at 45 miles an hour. So creating uncomfortable situations for drivers does create lower speeds, and that's been shown in many, many studies.
So vehicles are gonna be backing out from those angled or diagonal spots. Will the lighting change down there at all? Is there any plans? I know some in the city aren't big on a lot of lighting, but to have a certain amount so kids going across the street to those cars.
We haven't talked a lot about lighting yet. I don't know if the PMT has really gotten into that.
So that kind of crosses over bounds a little bit as well. The city is currently looking at a lighting ordinance or a change in our lighting philosophy as well. So that conversation is happening congruent to this. The roadway itself is not necessarily this group's project, but absolutely you will see new lighting in Brainerd in general, but in this area you will definitely see a changing of lighting. One of the things we're looking at as well is bollards. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept at all. Essentially pylons, if you will, which can be lighted as well. Placing those near the walkways, which immediately signifies to somebody, okay, this is a barrier. I need to be careful while I'm traveling through there.
Well, currently I do have the parking shown. I have a diagram up, and I just sent it to Reed, but I don't know if he's gonna be able to get it up. It's showing about 40 on-street parking spaces with 4 handicap stalls is what we're proposing kind of putting back, plus or minus probably 4 or 5. So that's kind of what we're showing. I don't know how many spaces are in that lot, but it's probably pretty similar.
Just to be clear, the diagonal, the goal would be to have them on the park side?
Both sides.
Oh, both sides.
Yep.
As soon as
Something like this.
as soon as the image,
Oh, yeah.
For all those at home.
Yeah, that's helpful, yeah.
For all those at home.
I'll try to,
We're just trying to get it up, but
trying to get it forwarded from here to the board table so I can present it to the TV for you.
it's a big,
That was
it's a
good.
big
That's
file.
helpful. That's
Yep.
helpful for me.
Yeah, it's very different from what it currently is, but that, like I said, that from the city's side of things, we are looking at this in many areas, that it's just a change in philosophy, and it really is looking at the further maintenance of it. What does this look like going down the road? Roads have to be replaced. We know that. We have had very long conversations about where our funding comes from parking lots. I heard a number that came through just a minute ago from your own meeting, $8 million of abatement bonds expected for parking lots. That's the type of stuff we're trying to avoid as much as possible because we don't necessarily know where that money comes from as a city. We do know where the money comes from for roads. We do know that the roads are being used, and we can calculate the amount of usage that those roads are having very easily. So it's just a change in philosophy that is also in terms of, like I said, trying to create a safer environment as well.
So is the theater, I don't know how big that is or the seating, but is the traffic or are there enough parking areas, parking stalls to support a full theater? Or I mean, it's gotta all be parked on the road, right? How far, I would assume you've got, here's how many parking stalls we might need when it's sold out, and how far does that stretch north-south?
This is going to be, when that is in use, it will be a very congested area. There will be a lot of people using it. It's very similar to when we have events for the 4th of July. That area takes up a lot of space, and there are a lot of people coming down to it.
Sure.
It will be a scenario where people will need to walk to get down there as well, but that's also something that we're pretty comfortable with, in getting people out of their cars and
I
getting
mean,
them moving.
where do they have to park up to the fire department and Kiwanis Park, or how far do they have to go in order to have enough parking for a full theater?
It will completely depend. You know, that a lot of this is hill space. A lot of it is, you know, we're not creating seats, we're creating space. There could be upwards of 300 people at some point. That would be very tight, and it would be including the hill as well. But again, we're less concerned about parking minimums and more concerned about getting people into the area and creating a space that they want to be.
I don't remember what the parking study came up with when we did our parking study, but I think there's over 1,200 parking spaces in like a 2-block radius of downtown. So if you think about that, that includes the Crow Wing County parking lots, it includes City Hall parking lots, which are in very close proximity to this area. I think Dave hit on the high points on what the city's kind of thoughts and goals are about these types of things. We're not looking to provide parking spaces for every attendant that goes to these places. We're trying to move away from the fact that people don't have to park right in front of a door at a store to be able to visit the store.
Help me understand the difference between this theater versus the theater that's at the high school, because there we had minimum parking requirements. So help me understand the difference.
This is considered a park space in an amphitheater, which is the biggest difference. And I believe, I'd have to ask Mr. Chansky, but I think we removed all of our.
But I guess, I mean, from a concept, why is it different?
So, I mean, I'm probably not the right person to ask that question because I don't like parking minimums to begin with. I think that parking minimums create a desire for people to remove buildings in order to create places for people to park their vehicle. I don't necessarily believe that the city should have parking minimums in place for things like that. In parks, we deal with these issues anyways. You know, anytime you have a softball game that's going on at Buffalo Hills, you know, yes, we have provided parking, but it's not much. And there is always going to be spillage. You know, Memorial is one of the only parks that we have that has a large parking area. The majority of our parks do not have, and we use mostly street parking for that.
Yeah, just, I'm with you on this, Mayor. I too am not a big fan of parking lots, but I'm just wondering, why this is different. And then potentially I would assume there'd be parking happening in the lower lot. And is there any, I mean, in my mind, it should be okay, but is there any liability risk on behalf of the school district for parking?
There shouldn't be. It should be no different than when people park in the library right now for your current events at Kitch's eBay.
So right now, you're looking at us, you're requesting that we deed that .39 acre parcel to the city, is what you're looking for tonight.
That would be the request. As you can see with the design that's up on the screen here, and I'm glad we have this one, which is closer now to what we are looking at. The small play area and restroom that's listed there is approximately where that land is.
It's pretty close.
In our design process, we have shifted those design elements out of that space in order to be aware or prepared if the school district is not interested in deeding that over. We also felt that moving them was in the best interest of the design anyways. We want the overall goal of this park is that it is a trailhead, which connects all of the trails in the area. We are currently working on an access to get the Cuyuna Lakes Trail brought to this, as well as the Paul Bunyan Trail. And so we want those amenities to be there for the people that are coming for that as well, unless, here's my restroom potentially or play area for this stage. Okay. So in terms of design, all of those elements can be removed. It's more so for future use and or so there isn't an issue where, hey, you put that tree in the wrong spot.
You're probably picking up just as many parking spots as what's there now is kind of an awkward parking lot.
It is an awkward parking lot.
And
We
standalone.
park all over the grass too, so.
And standalone, the property that we have, here in this area is not enough to generate, to even have a parking lot of our own outside of this. There's just not a real good fit for anything with that small, with those small couple parcels there, so.
Yeah. No, I know the city's been working on this for a long time, so I totally support it. And my only concern, like I said, is the spring working very closely with us for the activities that we have. And so, yeah.
I guess I would move to approve that we would deed this parcel of land to the city as outlined in our agenda.
Okay, thank you, Director Shortman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Boyles. Further discussion?
Was there any discussion about doing something like this at the current Kiwanis Park, being that?
Yeah, that is another really interesting question as well, is that, we as a city now are taking on an additional park. We have 17 parks, I believe. We are taking on an additional park, which has a set of issues. One of the biggest things with this was the restrooms as well. And I was very vocal about the fact that how many public restrooms do we need in a small area? Considering that we have the ones at Kiwanis, we have the ones that are located on your property, which are not ours, but are public restrooms. There was a lot of discussion about that. And it turned from Kiwanis into this in hopes that we can connect the two as best as possible. But I would definitely voice some of your concern with that as well, is that, we do have a park near the Mississippi, and we do maintain that park near the Mississippi. So it's definitely been a part of the discussion, and most of those talks moved away from it.
Yeah, and the thing that comes with this, now that we've been funded with $2.85 million, we're tied to this property. This is what we've given LCCMR. This is what they voted on down at the legislature. So now this is what we basically have to construct unless we have a very, very good reason to move away from this site.
Was this part of River to Rails discussion as well?
It's been a part of River to Rails, but the Mississippi Park group has been meeting since, I think, 2014. I think when they first started talking about this concept.
I'm forgetting a little bit of some of the pieces I've read. Was there a bathroom? There's bathroom usage? Is that right? Or you're wanting to utilize a
There was some initial discussion about utilizing, instead of installing a park restroom for the Trailhead Park, working in an agreement where the money that they were going to invest into the restroom facilities here at the park, maybe they would invest that into the facilities that we have by the concession stand for the baseball field, and then enter into like a joint use or an understanding that, you know, we would keep that walkway open for the people visiting the park to use the restrooms. That was some very initial conversations that Paul and Lane and Dave or actually David Chansky and Jennifer Bergman and I had in the first conversations with the park, but we never really took it any further than that. And then your guys' engineering documentation, the budgets came in favorably to just install them there. So versus trying to work together, it was just as convenient to have your own facilities there.
Absolutely, and I can speak to that as well, because I was the most vocal about that portion of it, and it was a part of the letter that was sent to you. In further talks that we've had with Reed and with some of the members from the school, there are a lot of hurdles potentially with that. One, that structure that you have probably needs some work, but there's also concern about, you know, what are the
Funding.
What are the liabilities and that sort of thing? How do we keep that area locked down or secure if you need to? And in our steps that we've taken, we've actually been able to reduce the cost of those bathrooms. Initially, they were coming in at a cost of $700,000, which I felt was very unacceptable. We've since found a way to do that where we've cut it down to potentially under 150 to 200,000. So removing $500,000 from the project really makes it more palatable. And ideally, for someone that is using this as a trailhead, the restrooms that we were initially hoping to maybe partner and have a partnership with are probably not ideal for that type of scenario.
Okay. Further discussion? Questions? So we have a first from Director Sherobra and a second from Director Boyles. Hearing no other questions or discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Charles Blacklands,
yes?
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you.
So the city attorney will draft up paperwork and we'll present that back to you for signatures.
Okay. Thank you, and as I mentioned, Mr. Sandy, please keep working closely and and I know Reed, you'll let Lane know and everything about.
Well, the good news is Paul and I got a lot going on together here, so next subject, thanks Mayor for coming in and talking with us, and you're welcome to hang with us for the Safe Routes if you want.
I'm going to sit right here because Safe Routes is a passion of mine as well.
Perfect.
Well, that's a good plan, though. I'm excited for this to come together.
It is, and this has been a lot of work. We're 7 years in at this point, and the problem with anything in the government is it moves extremely slowly until it doesn't, and then it moves extremely quickly. And so that's kind of the process we're in.
We really appreciate the support.
Absolutely.
Okay, next on the agenda for you is a resolution of support for the city of Brainerd to apply for a Safe Routes to School grant application. And this is for the engineering and design of improvements to the sidewalks and streets around Harrison Elementary. So if you recall, we performed a previous Safe Routes to School project by Lowell, over by Garfield. We made improvements to Northeast Brainerd streets and sidewalks. Last year, we came forward and asked for support to go into and apply for a grant for the engineering assistance, basically for SRF. To help us basically create a grant application to MnDOT for it. The grant was submitted and I believe we were approved for that. So now the next step is to go into engineering design.
Correct.
And so this is for mainly for the sidewalks around Harrison Elementary on the south side of the school. So this would be on Oak Street, and we'll show you a couple examples of what this would mean. But essentially, it's sidewalk improvements, it's crossing improvements, it's adding a median, some sort of a median design to Oak Street, as we were talking about, you know, the convenience of traffic flow, making that median and making it a narrower drive lane inherently slows down traffic as they're going through that area, and it also provides safe refuge for staff and students and the public that are crossing those intersections on Oak Street. We know, at least I feel this way when you drive down Oak Street and you see those old yellow, slow blinking lights, that people get numb to those and they just cruise right on through. So there's some significant engineering improvements that we've talked about with the civil engineers and MnDOT and Paul, and we got some really cool ideas here. So the resolution in front of you here basically is a resolution of support with the city. The city would head this up. There's no out-of-pocket funds from the school district. This would all be funded by the state of Minnesota, MnDOT, for these improvements, and Paul is kind of the lead person for this grant application.
Yeah, so you guys are, I think a few of you were around when we came around with the Garfield improvements. We've been successful in about 4 Safe Routes to School infrastructure grants, and they were mostly in the area of Garfield and Lowell. So we actually kind of revamped our Safe Routes to School plan in 2019 with the help of MnDOT and Region 5. They completely funded our plan for us. The second, as Reed was kind of inferring, is that we got funded for a $25,000 engineering study, and that's what you see in front of you right here. Between Reed, myself, I think Lane was a part of those conversations, we selected 3 schools to really look at. Since we've already done improvements around Garfield, we were really looking at Lowell, Harrison, and Riverside were the 3 that this study concentrates on. With Harrison being the #1 priority because of Oak Street and the challenges we have there. The whole report does have some improvements for Riverside. We would anticipate applying for future grants with this report.
It's 90 pages for your reading pleasure.
Yeah, we received it and looked through it.
So as Reed was kind of saying, this project that we've identified from this report is about $500,000. It's $500,000 worth of improvements. It includes the bump outs like you see around Garfield. It has medians. It's that one. There are medians. There's the bump outs like you see.
So these are these
traffic bump outs. Yep. There's bump outs there. And then it does include the rapid flashing beacons, which you basically, they're like what's on College Drive or what you see on Laurel Street. Pedestrian walks up, hits the button, it begins the flashing, and then that indicates that traffic should stop and pedestrian traffic can cross the street at that time. The medians, of course, do provide for slower traffic speeds. And so we worked very closely with SRF, who was the consultant that did this plan for us, between Reed, myself, and the SRF staff to come up with these concept designs. And the $500,000 that we would be applying for is specifically related to this improvement right here, what you see on the screen.
Paul,
So,
you're tying, you would also then be also looking to tie this into the city of Brainerd's improvements that you guys are making to sidewalks. Actually, they were going in this year, right?
yeah, they're brand new. There's new sidewalks that come up 15th and 16th. So it was kind of a coordinated plan to get, we have a lot of east-west sidewalks south of Oak Street. To get, there's a lot of students that live south of Oak. To get those students across at a safe crossing, we did put those north-south sidewalks in to get folks off the street and crossing at safe designated crossings on Oak. Yep. And so these are the improvements that we have identified. The city submitted a letter of intent to MnDOT to get this project funded. We were invited to fill out the full application, which is the next part of the process. That's due in January. This is a little different. Safe Routes to School funding, it's typically an 80-20, and they're usually federal funds. This Safe Routes to School solicitation is fully funded through state funds with MnDOT. So there's $7.5 million available across the state for Safe Routes to School infrastructure projects, and we're asking for the maximum amount. We feel like this could fund this whole project, and it's 100% funded through the state. The engineering expenses would come from the city of Brainerd to do that.
I'll move to approve the letter of support for the safe school routes as presented. and that's in our packet. This is nice, I like it.
I'll second. Okay, we have a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Schroeder. Any further discussions?
The the pedestrian median, that's an area where, because people can park on the street there, so they can still cross if need be. It's not gonna be funneled into the, like in front of the college where you can only go certain
Yeah,
spots.
there won't be a fence. Obviously, people can still walk across where they want. However, we would like that they go to the designated crosswalks. However, that's not human nature. They will cross wherever they want. And so, yes, there won't be any pedestrian, what we call like a deterrent fence to get them to go to designated crossings like on College Drive.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Janet?
Kevin Boils,
Yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
all in favor?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice-
Thank you.
Nice seeing you. Have a good rest of your evening.
You too.
Okay, next we have Sarah Porsche talking about our staff laptops.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to give you a little bit of background on this. So as if you remember, you approved our lease of our laptops, our new Toshiba laptops. It would have been probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago at this point. Unfortunately, we went with Toshiba. We had great luck with them in the first round. We barely had any damage or repairs that needed to be done. Unfortunately, there was a fan default in the new ones that we got. And so during COVID time, which was just excellent with everything else going on, we had about 300 of our staff laptops failed on us due to these fan issues. Thank goodness Toshiba Dynabook has been amazing to work with, and I want to make that very well known here. They have just been wonderful. What they ended up doing is they gave us their brand new model that's very highly rated and out many different areas, completely on our time frame. We were able to swap those out for a zero cost difference. And if you've gone laptops shopping lately, number one, you can't get them right now. Chromebooks we can get, but laptops you can't because of different chip shortages and things like that. So number one, they had them in stock, got them to us right away, built them for us right away, and then also shipped them to us right away and everything. So it's been really awesome. And they are doing this at a zero cost difference for us. So like that was the other part of my thing is these devices are actually, if we were to pay full price for them now, they're double what we paid for the last ones, but they're charging us a zero cost for it.
So this is really just an extension of our existing lease.
Correct. We just had to redo it because of the different serial numbers and stuff. And our legal team wanted to make sure that we had the official approval moving forward with that. And I want to let you all know that the kind of the background of that and how great they've been to work with. And then one other piece with this lease is we did not want to have to do another refresh right after this one for our staff. So this is a 4-year starting from this lease now.
Yeah, sounds good. Any questions, or do I have a motion?
I move to approve the lease, the certified staff laptops.
I'll second. Okay, we have a first from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Schroeder. Any further discussion? Thanks for working hard on this. It's good news, bad news. Tough
Yeah.
time to have the fail, but.
Exactly. They came through for us, so.
Okay. Roll call vote, Janet?
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson.
Yes.
Jana Shogren.
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Kevin Boils,
Yes.
all in favor?
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a bunch of updated policies, and Angie is going to do the first 3.
Good evening. I'll get you guys kicked off to the long list here. Hopefully mine will be relatively quick.
I am requesting approval of the first reading for 3 policies. The first 2, equal employment opportunity and chemical use and abuse. There is not any recommended changes for those 2 policies. The final one, 522, there is significant red line, as you saw in your preview, and I did already see I had a typo, so I've already corrected that on mine. Basically, the changes to this policy are really mirrored a lot in our harassment and violence policy. We made those changes due to the Title IX regulations being updated. So the majority of the changes in this policy as well is kind of bringing that back into line. So you'll see a lot of similarities if you compare with the harassment and violence policy, and it's just kind of required to update and create that consistency between the students and the staff side.
I thought the deliberately indifferent was kind of an interesting.
Yeah. There is some
I don't know if I
interesting
would've
things.
remembered
This is a MSBA language.
Okay.
And then also, I did cross-reference with the other policy too to make sure that the processes and procedures were in line.
I'll move to approve first reading of policy 401, 417, 522 as presented.
I'll second.
We have a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Blacklance. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Ruth Nelson.
Yes.
Janice Shogren.
Yes.
Charles Blacklands.
Yes.
Kevin Boils.
Yes.
Tom Hageland.
Yes.
All in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have some updated policy 710 and an appendix that Heidi Hahn and Lane Larson are going to present.
Hi again. This policy is what we referenced earlier in the presentation regarding transportation. The language change in the policy is just making note or a reference to the waiver that's being proposed. The waiver before you has been developed with legal to allow for transportation of students by parents to and from extracurricular or co-curricular activities.
So this will be a change ongoing, not just for this bus shortage time. It'll be ongoing. Okay.
Yep. And I'll go through the appendix that I'm asking the board to approve the first reading of tonight. Following the meeting that both Kevin and Charles alluded to that they went to with the transportation with Reichert's and such. And then we had further meetings last week as well to try to address the transportation issue, the bus driver shortage and so on. And one of the concerns that we had is there were some cases where parents wanted to drive their kids, but if the school provided the transportation, then they were supposed to go with the school provided transportation, and we had an obligation to see to it that we provided that transportation. What this waiver does, though, is it allows in this case when there's a shortage of drivers or a shortage of buses for whatever reason because there's too many people going different places and the need is too great for what we can accommodate. There are 4 different waivers that can happen, or 3 different waivers in here that can happen. First of all, this waiver allows the parents to take their children to the extracurricular or the co-curricular activity without making the school district liable should something happen on the way to or from that event. The second thing that parents can check off on is if they allow another parent of another child to transport their kid, they can identify who that parent is. They must have a legal driver's license, those kinds of things, and they can give the authority for their child to ride with that parent. The third box on here giving a waiver is there are times where we have some of our kids, like during the school day, go to sports boosters or go to work at the blood drive or something like that. And technically, if the school can't provide the transportation, many times the students will want to drive themselves. We are not supposed to be doing that. And so this waiver allows for that to occur. In this waiver, however, they cannot transport another student from the school. They can transport a sibling if the parent approves it, but they cannot transport some other student. They would need their own waiver in which to do that. I have to commend our legal counsel for really helping us to make this happen. As you guys have probably been hearing in the news, school districts are running into these kinds of issues all over. And this is a waiver that is being used in many of the city schools as well right now. And so we just made it to be something that we felt that we could work with Brainerd Public Schools. We have checked with the high school and the athletic department or activities department, as well as the administration of the high school feel that it's something that they can implement and that they can keep track of to make sure that we're ensuring the liability of the school as well. So I would recommend that we approve this. To me, this is another one of the pieces of trying to work with solving this transportation issue that we have with some of our co-curricular and extracurricular activities. And today would be a first reading because it's the first time you've seen it, and it would be approved at the December 6th meeting of the Board of Education if the board had some other things that you'd like to see added or deleted from it.
Lane, I thought I read, and maybe I just misunderstood, but in here, another parent can transport another student as long as we have that written permission, right?
Correct.
Oh, okay, good,
Yes, they
good.
can. Yep.
And it looks like they'll have to do this for each separate season.
Yeah, we
each
did
year.
put in here the date or the event or the season, and they can give us more detail in that. So if there's 6 events, let's just say it's Nordic ski or something, and there's 6 events, and that's how the parents want to do it. They can identify all 6 of those dates or whatever on the sheet and submit it on one document. But they do need to define the specific events that they're approving it for in that season.
I'll move to approve.
Did Director Boyle say second, or what did he say?
You said,
Oh.
It's okay.
Yeah. Director Haglund jumped me. I was gonna try to sneak in my online first.
I'll take
do
the
a
second. I'll take the second.
I love it.
Okay, so first from Director Boyles, a second from Director Hagelin?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
You did it, okay.
Good work.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I like this. Thank you for working to put this together. It does seem kind of odd that we're giving rights back to our parents to transport their kids to schools and to other activities, which.
It's the liability issue.
No, I
It's
know
all
that,
about
but it just
yeah.
seems odd that we're.
Yeah, I know, it does.
Yeah.
And yet I remember when I would want to take my kids home from a dance meet or whatever, and I had to sign them off and that kind of thing. So it's just,
No, I get it. Yeah.
Yep. Roll call vote.
Shanna Shogren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
all in favor?
Wonderful, it's approved. The first reading, and we'll see it next time. Okay, approval of the first reading of some Tim Murtha policies.
Their district.
Okay. It's trying to shorten what I had to say there.
So to be direct, policies 531, the Pledge of Allegiance, policy 540, use of cell phones, and policy 550, middle school athletics. These are the first reading policies bringing forward. They're all in accordance with MSBA, and there are no changes to the existing policies.
So this, did you say these are existing, they aren't changed?
These all are existing, and there are no changes. We are up for annual review for some, 3-year review for others. In the case of policy 531, it has not been reviewed since 2003. It's time to do it.
So Tim, speaking of 531, what is the redlining on that first paragraph then?
All policies, as you know, frequently come with administrative advice on how to proceed with the process. So that's the advice that's given. We always take out that italicized text because it doesn't have content relative to the policy. It just tells you something about either reminds you that it's correlative policy to something else, or it gives you guidance on what procedure or protocol to do. It's not policy language. That's why it's italicized in red. It comes that way. We remove it for final publication.
Okay.
And that's been consistent with all policy that we've brought forth forever.
With, one question I do have is with the, I can't say until this process, I really spent a lot of time looking at it. 550 middle school varsity athletic participation. Is there a way, and I don't see it in there, but anytime something like that happens that's a little outside of the norm or the process, is there something that, or what does the school district do to ensure bias or equality with this process?
What form of bias or inequality are you concerned with? 7th and 8th graders not having access to varsity sports, or 9th through 12th graders who would lose position or playing time to 7th and 8th
Either
graders?
way, I'm just wanting to make sure that this is a fair process for the players that that are already on the varsity team, for the player that's, and then also for the player that's moving up. So basically, what I'm saying is there a rubric of sorts that the varsity, and I don't expect you to have the answer right now, but just a placeholding comment, is there a rubric of sorts that determines for the coach of the players that are brought forward? So basically that what I worry about is that each player gets a fair shake in this process.
I think that could be true of anything, though. I think that there's no rubric for how a coach has to place a 9th through a 12th grader either.
And
But I think
a
that
lot of the reason that we're discussing this is because we had a long discussion at past board tables that we don't really want to bring too many 7th, 8th graders up at the varsity level. And that's why we have the review at the board table to see how many we're doing, because appropriately, they should be with their cohorts, not be brought up. So, but there are times when certain students need it or a team might need it.
Well, I'm not necessarily against it. I'm fine with it, except for the fact that I want to make sure that this is a fair playing field.
Well,
and that's where a rubric of sorts for me comes into play.
Although I was never a head coach in this district, I've been a head football coach in a large district before. The acceleration of a player is usually, if not exclusively, dictated by the needs of the team. So this is a function of best player plays, best eligible player plays. Where in the sports that I coached, football at least, it was highly unlikely that a middle schooler would be physically developed enough to be able to make a contribution to your football team. But as a former varsity assistant in basketball, there were players who, at the 7th and 8th grade level, who were better than the players who were older than them. And then in that case, the rubric that's in play is the coach's discretion to put the best team on the field or the best team on the court.
It's just any time that there's a subjective process, a person like myself gets a little more concerned.
Understandable. In defense of my brethren and sister in the coaching ranks, we work to put the best product on the court that we possibly can to represent the school. And in doing so, we have to make judgments. It is difficult to always play a student who is younger than a senior. If you have a senior who's not starting, that is unfortunate at times. But the gifts that are doled out and the work that is put in, it is quite possible, if not probable, that there will be scenarios where it is appropriate to play the younger player.
Oh, that's fair. Thank you.
I'll move to approve first reading of policies 540, 550, and 531.
Second?
Okay, first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Schrober. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Charles Blacklance,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Haglund,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren?
Yes.
All in favor?
Thank you. And you're staying up for the second and final reading.
Second and final readings for policies are brought forth at the last meeting. Thank you, Director Hahn, for covering that for me. So policies 519, 526, 528, interviews with students by outside agencies, hazing prohibition, student parental family, and marital status non-discrimination policies.
And have there been any requests?
There are
for
no
changes?
changes to it. The only change I remember identifying is a formatting update where the pagination and the policy number removed to the middle of the footer.
Okay, but there haven't been any comments made since the first reading, okay.
I move to approve the second and final reading of 519, 526, and 528.
I'll second.
First from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Blacklatz. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Kevin Boils?
Yes.
Tom Haglund?
Yes.
Ruth Nelson?
Yes.
Jana Shogren?
Yes.
Charles Blacklands?
Yes.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
And next up, Superintendent Larson is going to talk about a potential transportation contract.
Yeah, and I think that Heidi did a really nice job of addressing that a little bit when we were talking about transportation. All it's doing is giving me the authority to have the conversation with the YMCA to see if there's anything we can do to come up with an agreement where they could help us out. So I would recommend approval.
So we act on this? I'm on the board at the YMCA. Does that create a?
Yep, you should abstain.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Director Boyles.
I'll second, but this is just to go to talk to them and see what you might.
Just to, and see if we can put together some kind of an agreement.
Thinking the same thing, to me, that seems like an administrative duty that you should be able to go ahead without our approval, and, because this would come to us for approval, correct?
Yeah. But if you don't want us having those conversations with an independent, this way we know that.
Okay.
Do you see it creating a conflict with Reichert's or
Nothing.
anything?
No.
Okay, all right.
Not at all. They're looking for every
Yeah,
idea that we
absolutely.
can come up with. Yeah.
Roll call vote?
Tom Haglund?
Yes.
Ruth Nelson?
Yes.
Jana Shogren?
Yes.
Charles Blacklands?
I'll abstain.
Kevin Boils?
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 abstention.
Who made the motion?
Boyles, Director Boyles.
Who seconded it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did.
Hey,
You did? Thank you, Tom.
so 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up we have informational, and we'll start with the Equity Advisory Task Force. Director Blacklatz.
All right. We, pull up my notes here real quick. We had the opportunity to visit about a few different things at our last meeting. One of the main ones was we visited about the student experiences survey that has been sent out. And we had a good conversation about the content of that and in terms of the questions. We just, Aaron, who's the chair, gave us the opportunity to provide some good feedback on what that would look like. So, and maybe you've seen that or not. I can't remember if the rest of the board has seen it. I have, but I'm very pleased with this next step for our district to put that out to parents and families to be able to provide the insight. And also during the Equity Advisory Task Force, we covered and visited about the in-service, which is coming up, I think, isn't the 29th? Is the date?
Monday the 29th.
And so just discussed what that'll look like, some of those pieces, about discussion on implicit bias, and then also about a panel that will be presenting or be available for the staff as well. That took up a lion's share of the time. It was a very effective meeting. And then the next Equity Task Force meeting is December 14th at 2 p.m.
Wonderful, thank you. In regards to that too, do we have on December 7th, there's that equity community gathering, correct? That Aaron outlined last time? I have that on my calendar. I just bring it up because it would be wise to probably put it on here, and if we would potentially have a quorum of the board in attendance, it would probably be wise to get a notice out.
Good point.
Yeah, good point.
Is that the 7th?
That's what I put on my calendar while she was presenting last week, I guess, or last time.
December 7th.
Look. I don't remember if that was the date or not.
On your next memo, I will make sure that you have that for sure, if it is or not, because I thought at one time we had talked about waiting on
And
that.
maybe it did, but when Aaron was sitting here, it was presented as being that night.
Okay.
So if it is, I just want to make sure we do
I'll
whatever
find that out.
notifications we need to for the potential quorum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep, great.
Okay. Any other questions about the equity committee? Okay, I attended, the next item is the APAC committee, and I attended that last week. And during that meeting, we did it via Zoom, I think it was, or Google Meets. We reviewed the American Indian checklist, and a lot of good progress has been made on that. And there was a lot of discussion on professional development opportunities for staff. And the committee is going to be working with Tim Murtha about the next steps for that. And then we talked about possibly adding, and I would recommend that we add Ashley Ingerbertson to the equity team. She's our full-time Indian American APAC. I don't know what her title is.
The director, American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, the director.
Yeah, she's the
Yes.
director for us, and so it'd be nice. I think it would be a good thing to have her added to the equity team. So if we can look into that possibility. And then another exciting thing is Mary Aldridge was on our consent calendar, and she's the American Indian liaison that's part-time, 20 hours a week, and starts next Monday. And then also Ashley sent all of the team, or the committee, the Duluth policy regarding tobacco. And on our checklist, that's due to be reviewed by January 24th. So that'll probably be a topic at our next committee meeting or one of the future ones. And that's all I have for that.
A question for those two committees, are there minutes that are taken that can be, are they online? Posted?
Well, I know Aaron does minutes, I know. I can't remember where they're shared.
They are, I don't know what the timeline is for it, but I've had to search, I think, if you search equity, you'll see that the minutes do populate on the website.
For both?
Yep.
I'm not sure about APAC, I guess, but.
Yeah.
I haven't looked for them online, but they should be online.
Yeah, Ashley
so.
usually does the minutes
Okay.
for APAC as well.
Okay.
I'll make sure of that too.
Okay.
I'm not sure where they are either, I guess, because we always usually sent that information, so.
Okay, so next up, business services report.
All right, so in your board packet is an updated sheet with our care summary. So the difference from last time is I did add the column ARP, homeless and youth. So it's an additional $32,000 that we were not expecting. And we put in an application at this time, and it's basically just busing or supplies. We haven't used any of it yet, but we do have an application submitted, waiting for approval from MDE on that. And then also the Minnesota COVID-19 testing, it's the very last column, the yellow. That one, we had just received the allocation at the last update, and we weren't really sure what we were gonna do with it. I did work with Dr. Hahn on what we were gonna use it for, and we're gonna try to use it for some of our current nursing staff, COVID testing supplies, stipends. So that's the amounts in there as of right now. And that one does, I believe the date on that one is wrong. I'm gonna have to check. I don't think it goes beyond this year. But in the budget revision, I'll add, we just put in a request to MD for 2 additional vans for transportation as well. And then also devices. We had a Chromebook or a device lease. Sarah could fill you in more on that, but we did a buyout to use those as spares. And we're gonna pull that from CARES as well, and that was approved from MDE as well. So a lot of things happening in the CARES world. Did you guys have any other questions with regards to the CARES funds? Okay. And then due to unforeseen circumstances and transitions, we do need to reschedule the audit presentation. So originally we had it as December 6th at noon. December 13th, Mary is not available, and the one person that could be her backup is out on maternity leave. So wondering if December 20th at noon would work for the board members to reschedule to?
So would we reschedule December 6th to December 20? Because didn't we just schedule December 6th just
We
for the
would keep
audit?
the 6th because we have a lot of things on,
Oh, we do,
on
okay.
that meeting. Plus, we're looking forward to having Sarah sit at the table with us here.
Can we change the 13th to the 20th?
I have the tax hearing with all the statements that went out already with that date on it, so that one I can't.
The one thing we could do is do the audit in January, but with the organizational meeting and a regular meeting, it gets fairly long, but.
Tough month to add a 3rd meeting.
We could, okay. Should we just wait till January 10th and have her do the audit that night?
Yeah, the 20th would be really difficult for me.
Okay.
That's same here.
We thought the same thing, that was gonna be hard, so, yeah, okay.
All right. That's all I have.
So just expect a little bit longer meeting on January 10th.
Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent's report?
All right, I just have just a couple of things that we haven't talked about so far. I did just say that we're very excited about having Sarah Spear join the board at the next meeting, and so congratulations. We'll be sending out your packet, and it'll be very fun to have you take the oath of office that night, or that day at noon, so that'll be wonderful. Also, I just wanted, we've talked a lot about the driver situation today with Reichert's, and again, we are working very well and doing everything we can. If anybody knows of anyone that might be interested in driving, please send them that way, because I know that they are working very hard to get bus drivers to help out the school and all the needs that we had. One thing that I did forget to mention last week is that we had a Baxter Park and Rec meeting on November 18th, and Anne Marie Locker, our community education director, did a fabulous job of connecting the Baxter City with the community education and the work that the collaboration that we do for our summer rec programs and so on. And so we're excited to see that collaboration continue, and we had a very, very nice meeting. The audit, we already agreed to that's going to be changed to January 10th. And then for the board members going to the phase 1 and 2 training, you're going to be really excited because I'm going with you, because I'm going to be speaking at phase 1 training that night. So the 4 of us will go together and I'm going to talk about the importance of superintendent and school board relations. And so I'm really excited to be joining the 3 of you and for that great training. So that's all I have.
Okay.
And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Doug, that was really nice of you to say that tonight. Thank you. Yep.
Wonderful holiday.
Yep.
Is the project oversight, are we still doing that on the 7th, or is that not needed?
Let me look at my little notes here.
We should be, because it's
Yep.
the one before the regular school board meeting on the 13th, right?
You know what? I think that's an error. Didn't we move that up so that we had everything ready by December, for December 6th? Let me look at that. I'll get back to you on that one too.
About not having that.
We had that discussion and I need to clarify that. So let me do that too.
So after the 6th, I'm back on the project
After the
oversight?
6th, you're back on, yeah, right.
Well, I think there's some other restriction that doesn't allow you. Just kidding.
I was waiting for my vest, project oversight vest.
Your best, oh, you could get one.
Okay, so yeah,
I'm an
there's
old
lots of
tax
future
teacher, you
meetings.
know.
Lots of future meetings and events that listed there that you can read on your own, and we are not gonna have the December 20th meeting, so, now I just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
So Director Blacklands first, and Director Hagelin a second, and we even need a roll call on this.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Anna Shulgren,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands,
Yes.
Kevin Boyles,
Yes.
Tom Hagelin,
Tempted to say no, but I'm gonna say yes.
all in favor.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.